we have to be able to sow into these young people to say, like, guys, you've got to do it better. Like, you've got to we do have to teach them a work ethic. Like, we do have to teach them how to work hard, but also like how to work better. You know?
Yeah, I think so. I think laziness is the manifestation of aimlessness.
Yeah, totally.
Right. So I don't think they have an aim and they don't know what they're shooting for.
Yeah. All right. Hey, welcome to another episode of Politely Rude with Abby Johnson. So glad that you are tuning in. And this week we have another awesome in-studio guest, Ruslan KD.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the work you do.
Of course. Thanks for what you do. You are the author of a new book back here, Godly Ambition. I have some like oldies but goodies people that watch the show, so they may not know who you are. You're a refugee from Azerbaijan, which is quite possibly my favorite word on the planet to say.
You nailed it. I'm so impressed.
So tell everybody kind of your like backstory and like who you are.
Yeah, so I'm ethnically Armenian. Armenians in that part of the region tend to be under a lot of persecution because Armenia is the oldest Christian nation, all the way to the year 300. And so I was an Armenian who was born and raised in Baku, Azerbaijan, which is predominantly a Muslim state. And in the late 80s, the pogroms of Baku, a lot of conflict, and they wanted to displace all the Armenians. And so we were ethnically cleansed from Azerbaijan, Baku. In the late 80s, up until 1990, about 500,000 Armenian Christians were ethnically cleansed. Came to the United States as a refugee. Didn't know the language, didn't know anything. My mother and my father split up 6 months after, and I just went down a really dark spiral of drugs, alcohol. I was sexually assaulted as a kid, and it just all fell apart at a very early age. And so I was the kid that, you remember that show Scared Straight?
Yeah.
So I was a kid that didn't have to go on Scared Straight because things got so bad for me. I was almost stabbed. And my mom relocated us to North County, and that was the beginning of me kind of turning my life around. Subsequently had an encounter with Jesus, got into music, got married, and been YouTubing about the last 10 years, professionally about the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So feel free to ask clarifying questions. That's like the very, very condensed version of everything.
And you've got a huge YouTube audience. And what are you primarily doing on YouTube?
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I had a teacher named Mr. Odago. And my favorite part about Mr. Odago in the history class I was taking was that he would open up some days with current events. And so he would take current events and he'd tie them into history, and it just made it substantially more interesting for me. And that always stuck with me. And then like when I started leading Bible studies, men's groups, that sort of stuff, we'd open up with whatever was the concerns of the people that week. And then when I started doing YouTube, initially it was like marketing advice for other Christian hip hop artists. That's what I was doing prior to YouTube, traveling and performing and independent musician. And then I started just letting them ask me questions, and it was around current events and trying to connect it to a biblical worldview, a Christ-centered worldview, tying it into scripture. What does it mean? And so that's more or less what I do now, is like, what is happening? What is trending? What are people concerned about? What are the anxieties, the fears that people are talking about within the broader news climate, internet culture, news cycle? And we try to connect that to like, how do we orient ourselves to see this thing from a biblical worldview? That's then evolved into podcasting, kind of like this, and speaking at churches, and a little bit of music still. And yeah,
cool. So you've written this book, Godly Ambition. I really want to get into it because I really like what you've done here. I think there's kind of I don't know. I some people aren't gonna like what I'm about to say, but I don't care. I think there's I don't know, this idea, particularly in ministry, when you're doing God stuff, I think there's like two positions, okay? You have people who are all about prosperity gospel, right? So the name it and claim it people.
Blab it, grab it.
Yep. And then you have what I say, poverty gospel. So, you better not be making any money. if you are working for the Lord. You better drive like a 1984 Ford Pinto that's falling apart. You better not have a nice car. You better not get your hair cut except once every 8 years. You better, you know what I'm saying?
Yep,
Like, you
yep,
better
yep.
make your own clothes. You better live in an old shack. Like, you better, I hear that a lot. I mean, people are like, I did a live stream from my car one time, and they were like, "It looks like you have leather seats," and I was like, "Yeah, I have leather seats. Yeah, I drive a nice car." Like, it's so very weird. It was so odd. I think both of those perspectives are wrong, right? But I think it's okay for us to have ambition, have a career, have nice things, work hard, make money, be responsible with our finances. I think all of those things are fine. But I think there is this weird faction in Christianity that says that's not all right. And I think we need to tackle that and say, no, like, ambition is a good thing. If you make money doing it, that's good too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think the extremes is where people get in trouble. And I think you're spot on. I mean, the world will say, like, make ambition your God, right?
Yeah.
Do your thing, make it your North Star, get to the bag. The church often speaks down on ambition. And that's kind of what you're describing. Or they go to the prosperity side, right? And so the interesting thing is the scriptures don't condemn ambition. They condemn selfish ambition, which is, interestingly enough, a different word. It's the word eretheia in the Greek. I'm no Greek scholar, but it is different than the word ambition in 1 Thessalonians 4, where Paul says, make it your ambition to lead a quiet life, working with your own hands, so that your daily life may win the respect of outsiders and you won't be dependent on anyone, right? He makes it his ambition to preach the gospel where others haven't. He makes it his ambition to please God. Different word for ambition. So I think you're totally spot on. And so we go to one or two extremes. And the issue with the prosperity gospel is if you just rail against the prosperity gospel, but you don't give people a different pathway that's biblically centered, then they will slide into apathy and a poverty gospel. They would slide into a, hey, you have nice things, you're wrong gospel, ignoring the macro view of Scripture, which Scripture has a lot to say about enjoying the fruits of your labor. Scripture says a lot about those who are diligent and faithful within a system that's not oppressive, within a system that doesn't have mass persecution, generally tend to do better, right? That's Proverbs. But then we also have to read those verses in context of, yes, Ecclesiastes, that ultimately it is meaningless if you don't have God. That in Job, in the context of Job, that yes, sometimes tragedy will strike when we least expect it. And we have to read all that together. And so I think people love to go to the, Jesus said, don't store up treasure on earth where rust and moth, but they miss where there's so much other stuff said about finances and being faithful with the little, right? And being generous, being positioned to be a giver. And so I think you're totally spot on. And I've seen it. And I think I'm like, man, we need a better framework for this. We need a better orientating around Scripture, but we need a better framework for young people, because if you're just telling young people, punt it, it doesn't matter. Jesus is coming back next Thursday. You got your health insurance, forget what you're doing here. It's like, how is that empowering to usher in goodness and beauty and change into the world, right? The kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. And we pray those prayers, but what does that practically mean here and now?
Yeah. What made you say, like, this book right now, I've got some things to say, like, I need to get it out, and how did you kind of come up with this?
I think generally what works well in the content space, in terms of like not just being famous for the sake of being famous or being an influencer, quote unquote, but what works well is trying to help the version of you from 10 or 20 years ago. What is the version of me from 10 years ago, 20 years ago wrestling through? What questions do they have? What are they not being told? What resources do they not have? And so I honestly approached it like that. It took me 20 years of kind of wandering and trying to find my way from the moment I started dating my wife to getting serious to then getting engaged. And there just wasn't a lot of these conversations being had, meaning this. I knew that, like, yeah, coming to Jesus, okay, I have a new heart, new desires. I know that, like, I'm not supposed to have sex with my girlfriend, and I know that, like, abortion's bad, and I know that, like, I can't look at porn. Okay, cool. I know those things. Don't do those
Mm-hmm.
things. Okay, and I know I'm, like, supposed to go to church and read my Bible. Yes and amen. But now what?
Mm-hmm.
And no one sat me down and had a conversation with me about work ethic. No one sat me down and had a conversation with me about manhood. No one sat me down and had a conversation with me about being a provider, about being the priest of my home. No one sat me down and had these conversations and gave me any sort of framework to do any of this stuff. And so that is how I'm approaching this conversation, is like, hey, what do people need at that pivotal age when they're just getting their life off the ground and they're trying to figure it out? And a lot of it is we have to practice the law of replacement. Like, you can't just rip out the weeds in the garden. You got to plant something better. You have to keep going back, tending to the garden, but something else needs to be planted. And folks don't know how to do that. They don't know how to replace those vices and the struggles and the false identities that the world is projected onto them with a godly identity. They don't know how to replace that selfish ambition with godly ambition. And so ultimately, that's why, as I looked around the landscape, I saw a lot of the stuff you see, where just such a weird mentality towards finances, such a weird mentality towards career, towards purpose, towards calling. And I figured, hey, I think I could speak into this, and hopefully from my scars, I can compress time for people a little bit. It doesn't have to take you 20 years to walk through this. Maybe it can take you a year or two, maybe 5 years to get through it. And so if people are listening, they're older, this is a great book to give to your kids, to your grandkids, right? And to equip them with, like, a biblical framework of how do you go about this. It's not a memoir. It's not just my story. It's like an actual framework for how to get after it in a biblical way.
Yeah. I think we've got I think you're right. I think we have a lot of kids out there kind of like, I know I have these gifts. I know I have these talents. I know I want to do something with it, I think it's important that we direct kids, specifically young men, because these are people, and I think this is completely scriptural. These are people who are going to grow up, right? They're being raised up to give back to the world, to give back to our communities, and there goes their generosity too, right? They're giving back into the church. I think we have a society, we have a kind of a culture right now where we've got, like, a bunch of, like, laziness, like video games and laziness, and people don't want to go outside, and we have just kind of all this apathy. We have to be able to sow into these young people to say, like, guys, you've got to do it better. Like, you've got to we do have to teach them a work ethic. Like, we do have to teach them how to work hard, but also, like, how to work better, you know?
Yeah, I think so. I think laziness is the manifestation of aimlessness.
Yeah, totally.
Right. So I don't think they have an aim and they don't know what they're shooting for.
Yeah.
And so then apathy is the default, because what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
So it's not that they're, like, lazy as in they don't want to work. Because they can master video games. They can master social media. They can figure these things out. I think it's that I don't know what am I aiming for? And if there's a aim that is directed towards them, that's not just about you, right? And you're the center of the universe and main character syndrome. And it's all about you, because that's what the world's going to tell them.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you decide the meaning of your life. You get to decide your purpose or discover your purpose. I think when we say, hey, no, God has designed you for work. God has a purpose for you. Your assignment is seasonal. It's not permanent, right? That we feel like the world will tell us, like, all you're good at or all you're good for is what you're doing right now. And what you're doing right now is your identity. The reality is you've lived long enough to know that seasons come and go.
Yeah.
We do different things in different seasons. And then thirdly, like, you discover your calling through serving people.
Yeah.
You don't discover your calling in a bedroom by yourself on the
100%.
internet. You discover your calling by getting out there, doing things to help other people. The more we do things to help other people, the more we're refined and we become sanctified. And then the more we discover some of those natural wirings and natural giftings. So my journey, like, I'm growing up, single parent home, struggling with porn, struggling with being a victim of sexual assault. And then the church becomes this, like, pathway to, like, meaning and value and doing something useful. And not just that, but also learning some stuff, right? So I was behind the cameras. I was on the mixer. I was on the social media team. And now I'm, like, serving the church and serving people, but I'm also learning hard skills that are valuable in the marketplace. And if people then saw that as a pathway, meaning that your aim is, hey, know God, make him known, and then serve people. And in that, you start discovering why you're here.
Yeah. And in that, I mean, I was going to ask you, that was going to be my next question, like, how does the church help with this, right? I mean, because I think you're right. I think there's a lot of kids out there that have a lot of skills. I think part of the aimlessness is that sometimes maybe the older generations don't understand the minds of the kids right now.
Yes.
Right? So, like, I mean, I can just use this example. My son, Luke, is, I mean, I know it's weird to say he's extremely talented at video games, but the dude just is. Like, he's really good at it. And that's, like, not part of my brain, right? But, like, I think, man, he'd probably be really good at, like, coding and stuff like that. You know? That's not, like, part of my brain that clicks. And I don't even know how to help him with that, right? But I don't know. There's probably people in the church that could help him. Maybe that's something that, maybe there's a part of his brain that could be unlocked that could be, he could be serving the church in some way or whatever, you know, like you were saying. So, like, how do you think the church could be better at helping to, like, raise up our young people and to get them, like, plugged in?
Yeah. I think you're so right. You said young people are wired different. And I remember when I was, how old is Luke?
He's 12.
He's 12. Yeah. So I remember being young and then, like, wanting to do different things that I thought was going to be my purpose in life. So at 12, I thought my purpose in life was, I'm going to be a professional basketball player.
Yeah.
Right. And you see the obvious issue with that, right? Like, I'm 5'10" today. I was 5'5", 5'6".
Yeah.
You know, when I'm 12, and there's this little thing called genetics.
Yeah.
You know, and so my mom's boyfriend, Yosha, he has to sit me down, and he's like, Ruslan Jan, our people come from the Caucasus Mountains. We're built different.
That's awesome.
Right? And he has to explain genetics to me. Right. And so, like, our Armenians we're just built different. There's genetics, other components to it. Now, the desire to play basketball did come with some transferable skills.
Sure.
I learned work ethic. I learned how to put my head down and suffer.
Yeah.
Right? Jump soles on my feet, doing stadium jumps with the only guy out there in, 90-degree weather in the middle of the summer. Suffer.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm going for it. So there were some practical skills that transferred over, but it's like, I'm not going to be a professional basketball player. So, and then when your identity is anchored on that, and then it's hit with, then I got cut my sophomore year, and everything shatters, right? But what happened was, I knew that I could extract some value from that and to transfer it to other things, the work ethic, the grind, the able to put my head down. I also think young people are intrinsically more in tune with the micro economies that are developing. Meaning this, when I was young, they kept telling me, you got to go to college. You got to go to college. So what did I do? I went to college. I got a degree in visual and performing arts. Okay. I went crazy in debt, and I'm one of the few people that's actually doing what I went to college for. But that came at a huge expense. And the only thing that was valuable about college was about 2 or 3 relationships that I built. The education was, in my opinion, completely worthless because I was a practitioner. I was doing the things. And so you're telling people, you got to go to college, you got to go to college. And the reality is, instinctually, I didn't know social media was going to be a thing. I didn't know the internet was going to change the world. I didn't know any of this stuff.
Right.
But intrinsically, I knew that, like, I don't need to go to college. Like, my time probably would have spent better, like, working tables at a restaurant and learning how to communicate with people and serving people and, like, really hacking away and understanding my craft. Instead, I went to college. And so I think young people are also, like, they know that something is shifting. Something is changing in the economy, and that it's not just do the thing that's linear, because nothing is linear anymore. No, we don't know what the next 5-10 years is going to predict with AI and all these things. And so I think sometimes we should trust young people and say, I think you might know a bit more. Now, on the practical side, for someone like your son, if he's like, I want to be a professional video game player, right? Just hypothetically, you say, okay, what skills do we pair that with to make you a potential video game player? So now we're talking, you got to learn to live stream. You got to learn cameras. You got to learn OBS. These aren't super complicated things. You can learn them on YouTube in an hour. But then you also got to learn to communicate. You got to learn to tell a story.
Okay, so that was actually literally going to be my next question. How important do you think right now? We are a very disconnected society, right? Like everybody's always looking on their phones. Uh, me included, right? I mean, everybody's on social media all the
Guilty as
time.
charged. Yep.
We text all the time. I mean, I'd much rather you text me than call me, but it does come at a price. Like I just recently saw a study that said when your child I just had a kid go off to college. Speaking of college, I just had a kid go off to college, and I read a study that said that your child's serotonin levels go up when they receive a phone call from you and hear your voice. Their serotonin levels go down when they receive a text from you.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that voice, it's like a connection, right? It's an actual connection. How important do you think, tied to ambition, human to human connection is? Yep. Like looking eyeball to eyeball, being able to have
being in the room with
conversations.
Yeah.
How important do you think that is to ambition?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I have a whole chapter written on community and the role the local church plays in all of this. And so I think community is wildly important, because in community is when you're just exposed to different voices. You're exposed to different generations. And then someone could come alongside and help fill in the gaps of, okay, you want to be a professional gamer? Here's what you need to do. You need to learn to communicate. You need to learn these other things. And yes, just the practical side. Everyone is a social creature.
Yeah.
To some degree, even the quote unquote introverts.
Yeah.
Right. The thing about introverts is they just don't like small talk. Introverts still like people. They just don't like being the center of attention in small talk. So everyone needs community. Everyone needs to be connected. And again, when you ask what can the church do? I think one, just allowing a place for kids to be themselves. At my church, that looks like they can play video games for the first 20 minutes,
sure.
Right? They can talk about what their dreams are and how to connect these things. So, and then you say, okay, you want to be a video game player. Okay, sweet. You can't just be good at video games. You got to be good at video games and social media. You got to be good with video games and communicating. You got to be good at video games and be funny. Okay, so now let's take that passion from video games and maybe we'll stack it with, we're going to put you on the social media team and let you document what's going on behind the scenes each night at youth group, right? And so now we're taking that passion and we're saying, this is actually in your best interest to learn this thing, and you get to serve the church. And I think when we connect those things, now you're helping someone, I call it talent stacking, right? You're stacking multiple abilities and talents, because you don't have to be the best. That's like nonsense. You just need to be above average in 5 or 6 different things. And if you could be above average in 5 or 6 different things, now you got a unicorn of a skill set that's valuable in the marketplace.
Yeah. How do you feel like you got to where you are right now? You're a huge name in the online community. How do you feel like you got there? Was it kind of that talent stacking that you talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I got a chapter in the book about talent stacking, and just simply, hey, foundationally, what do I know? I know how to use a computer. Okay, great. I'm going to now record myself making music. Then I'm going to mix the music. Then I'm going to make my own beats. That set me up to learn video. Learning video set me up to learn cameras. Learning cameras set me up to learn all of this and broadcasting. Till this day, I run all my own stuff. I know my camera angles. I know how to set everything up. That set me up to live streaming. And then on the other end, I'm also communicating. I'm leading Bible studies. I'm speaking as a kid, fairly early on, 17, 18, I'm leading Bible studies. So it's the culmination. So I'm not the best live streamer. I'm also not the best preacher. But those two things together, let's just say I'm top 10%. But those two things together is a powerful skill set. Whereas most people, they don't know anything about the camera. I'm sitting here looking at your guys' camera, your lighting, the screen. I see that she's running a Rodecaster back there. I'm curious about the video switcher. I'm massively in tune with all this. And again, those are two different skill stacks. You put those together, and then you add another one. Here's one I'm trying to develop: humor. I want to learn to be more funny. I got friends that are comedians. I call them. I'm walking them through my sermons. Help me refine the humor. Another one, I learned to write. Learning to write made me a better communicator, because now all my thoughts are on paper,
right,
and I could extract the chapters and turn them into talks. These are all, I'm not the best writer, I'm not the best preacher, I'm not the best live streamer, I'm not the best YouTuber, but all those things together, stacked on top of each other, will make you a unicorn. And that is ultimately what this new era that we're in, that's ultimately what you want. You want to be a unicorn. Now, even if you don't want to be an influencer, you still want to be a unicorn with your skill set.
Yeah. How do we teach people? I don't know. I mean, this is totally a God thing. I'm asking you a question that's really like the answer is like God. But I mean, I think, and I have, this is like totally like I've had to do this myself. Okay. This is like a self check too. When you get into doing this sort of thing, right? When you become really accomplished in anything that you're doing, those things can become idols.
Mm-hmm.
So how have you found yourself like really tuning that out, right? And tuning into God and kind of doing that like self-check.
Local church community.
Yeah.
Access to pastors, accountability in in-person context, right? So yes, I have friends. I'm going to see one of my friends tonight. I have friends all over the country, but the people in my in-person life, I don't want to say real life because I don't want to say social media is not, it's real, but I mean like in my in-person, people that come to my home. I would also say boundaries with these things. So I don't know, like I got my phone grayed out, right? So like that helps me not be on the phone. I have time limits on everything. I don't have the YouTube Studio app anymore because I'll be deep in the comments, and the comments are never true because they're always you're the best or you're the worst or you're the heretic. And so limiting that, I would say anchoring myself in daily rhythms, waking up at the same time, working out every day, reading my Bible every day, going outside, touching grass, all those things. And so, when you're like, you're a big deal in the online community, I'm like, oh, am I? Because my day-to-day life is very normal. It's very quiet. It's very simple. And I shut down the noise. I keep a pulse on what's happening, but I try to put blinders on and be present in what I'm doing. Yeah. So I think, so to answer your question, I'm trying to figure out a simple way to say it. So I think there are rhythms and anchors that protect us from making the thing we're doing with God to making it an idol, doing it for God, that we lose God in the process, right? So we could easily drift into, I'm doing this thing with God, and then before you know it, you're just doing it for God, and then you haven't read your Bible, and you haven't studied, and you haven't spent time in prayer. And so that is in the daily rhythms, the daily anchors, the daily non-negotiables that I think if we keep those in check, then we'll be all right.
Yeah. What's the one thing, like if you were giving like kind of an elevator pitch about your book, Godly Ambition, like what's one thing that you'd really want people to kind of take away from it?
Yeah. I think the big idea is quite simply ambition, when it's restored and reoriented towards service and stewardship, is something that could change the world. And I think the more we empower people to have a godly ambition that's not selfish, it's not self-centered, but it's pointing to people to something greater, something more beautiful, towards service, towards stewardship, I think that changes the world. And I hope that as people are curious about Jesus, they say 48% of non-Christian Gen Z is curious about Jesus, that when they step into a church, they step into the faith, that now we're equipping them to walk in purpose and calling, to discover the season that they're in. So that's the quick elevator pitch. It's like, man, don't just remove the vices, replace them with gardens.
Yeah. Tell me about how your marriage and your children have affected your ambition.
Marriage, I mean, is amazing. I've been married 17 years, together 21 years. So we're at that point where we've been together longer than we've been apart. So it's almost like I don't really remember many sentient memories before my wife, right? Like you just kind of been here all the time. So marriage, I think in and of itself is a sanctifying process. Yeah. Like it's so sanctifying. There's a part of you that, a good part of you that has to die, right? In the sense that you die to some of your own carnal desires when you step into a marriage. Children in the same way. And the motif in the scriptures is when, he who loses his life for my sake will find his life, right? True life. So I think it's a beautiful, sanctifying, consecrating process. And then it's also very, very practical. Like I can't just be on the road all the time. Yeah. Because my 4-year-old will tell me, I don't like it when you travel, Daddy. Why do you have to go on so many trips? And I have to pause and explain, Daddy has a book coming out. We're going to work really hard for the next month. And then like Daddy's home. Daddy's not going anywhere. Middle of October, I'm home. I'm not traveling anymore. And so I think that, and I also think like there's something healthy about like getting on the ground and just playing with your kids, right? Last night, my 4-year-old Zoe, she's like, "Daddy, would you play with me?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so I'm on the ground, we're playing with Barbies, we're painting her nails, we're doing just the simple things. And I think there's something beautiful about being present in that. And then there's also, that becomes the bigger why, right? That I'm here because I have a family that God's entrusted me with. I want to make sure I shepherd that well, I steward that well. And that reminds me of the influence I have, because this is my first ministry, but that scales out. So there's so many great things about marriage. And I think more people end up discovering their calling on the other side of walking in marriage and family, right? Like sometimes people are like, "I don't want to have kids." And it's like, "Why don't you want to have kids? It's too expensive." Like, stop it. Because even successful people who are wealthy don't have kids anymore, right? But the process of walking through starting a family, having kids, often lights that fire and helps you discover your calling. And that, I think we need to talk about more. I don't know how to talk about it because I don't put my family on social media often.
Yeah.
Because just for privacy reasons, but I think we need to cast that vision more, right? Like even in the conversation around the unborn, the conversation that we should be having and can be having is, how do we talk about the beauty of kids, the beauty of family, the beauty of marriage, the beauty of ushering in new life, the wild process of new birth, and how beautiful it is, but how dangerous it is. Like, I think those conversations, God willing, inspire the next generation of people to say, "I do want a family. Forget the climate crisis. Like, I want to have a family." Or like, I know Jesus might come back next Thursday, but like, I want a family, you know?
Yeah. My kids and my family, that actually is the driving force behind my ambition. And I don't know that young people have actually caught that yet, because we have so many like dinks, right? And young people are being so influenced by people who are telling them, "You don't need kids. Like, go travel, go live for yourself, go." But it's like, no, man, like if you could understand like what life is like through the eyes of like looking at someone who is your heritage, right?
Your DNA.
There's nothing more spectacular than living your life for your family. You know? There's nothing that gives you more ambition than that. But I don't know that like our young people really are even understanding that, because it's like you said, I don't know that we're really talking about it, or that we're really expressing just how important children are.
Yeah.
Or just how like lovely they are. Like we were talking at lunch today, like every day, like at some point in time, I look at the face of my child, my 8 children. I look at each one of them when I'm with them, and I either say it out loud or say it to myself, like, "You are so lovely," and I feel it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How can we cast that vision better? Because I struggle with like putting my kids on social media, but all my folks who don't have kids are like, "Man, we need to see this," right? So when folks come over, influencers, they're like, "Can we just hang out with your family?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you can hang out with your family." But then they hang out with my family and they're like, "This makes me want to have a family. Why can't you put more of this on social media?" And so I'm in that tension. So do you put your family on social media? And what is and like the pros and cons of that? Like, tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a decision that Doug and I, my husband and I, like sat down and really thought about, and we actually like went through both, right? So like we were like putting our kids out and all this kind of stuff or whatever, and then like Sound of Freedom came out, and we were like, "Take all the pictures down." Like we were like going through our socials and like deleting all of our pictures of our kids.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. And then like one day we both were like, "This is stupid."
Yeah.
God has called us to steward our family to everyone. Like we want to show everyone that family is beautiful, that it's doable, and that it's necessary. You know?
That's good.
And so we don't live in fear like that. And so we do protect, you know, like our kids go to a private school. So, you know, they got uniforms. So like when we post a picture, you know, we take out their
logo,
uniform
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
you know, and stuff like that. Like we're not like our kids at blah 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 school today, you know, whatever. But I mean, it wouldn't be too hard to figure out where they go to school. But like we do like some things, you know, to kind of protect like some privacy. But like, you know, my daughter's at college and everybody knows she's there. Everybody, you know, everybody knows who she is. She's very public about her life and she loves it because she's like, my life is a ministry, you know?
It's good.
And so we've made an intentional decision about that. And our oldest daughter, Grace, like we've talked to her about it. So we're like, you know, if there's ever a time that you're like, you know, cut it out. Like, I'm kind of tired of being known as Abby Johnson's daughter. Like, I'm kind of tired of, you know, my story being out there so much. Like, I'm kind of tired of it. Like, just let us know and we'll cool it.
Yeah. What about the little ones?
Yeah, little ones. I mean, they're, we put them out too because we want people to see us. Like, I want people to see me like momming, you know, and I want people to see me loving my children. And I want people to see the beauty of parenthood. And I feel like they wouldn't be able to see it if I didn't show it. And I mean, nowadays, like nobody has big families anymore, you know? And so we want people to see like, you can do it and you can do it well.
It's good. It's good that I think that confirms some things I've been sensing as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is kind of scary. I mean, I think people they are kind of scared, you know, when they start doing it. A lot of people are like, well, I put the backs of my kids' heads or, you know, something like that. But
we did a vlog recently and it was like a day in the life. People were kind of curious and we did a vlog and it had a lot of family stuff, but we put my son in it. He's 10. And then I'm like, hey, blur his face out. And then like I watch it back. I'm like, this is so ridiculous. Like I have his face. Let me just unblur his face, you know? And it was fine. But I think trying to figure out ways to show more of that. And then also like the tension of like, is this exploitive, right? Like if I'm putting them in content, is that exploitive to a degree? So we didn't put my 4-year-old in it, but you can hear her talking in it. But no, that's really helpful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I want people to see ambition not just as like career, but also family.
Come on. That's good.
Like have ambition to have a family, have ambition to have a healthy, God-centered marriage. Like have the ambition to have a children. Yeah. Right. Like,
lots of them. Yeah.
Like have ambition to fill your home with the sound of like children's laughter.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
And I think we're kind of missing that as well because the culture has told us it's too expensive, it's too hard, labor's too hard, you know, hospitals suck, blah, blah, blah. Like all these excuses why we shouldn't have that sort of like godly family ambition. But I think if you do it right and you do it well, like one can drive another.
That's good. Yeah, it's really helpful.
Yeah. Good. Well, I really appreciate you coming. I appreciate your takes on all this. I think it's so important. How has your like family been a part of like driving you toward your ambition? Like, has that been a big part of your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think foundationally there's this tension where when you have all the time in the world, you don't have external motivators.
Yeah.
And then when you have the external motivators of a
I meant
family,
not like your wife and stuff. We just talked about, but I meant like your mom.
Oh,
like,
my mom. Okay. Yeah, my mom just recently got sober.
Cool.
So that's been cool. She started going to church as a Calvary locally that she's been popping up to. And so she got sober. She had an encounter with God. Really awesome. My dad, we're in a much better place than we were. And so I think on the macro, it is interesting to say the least to see them on their own journey, right? My mom specifically, like she went from like really struggling, alcoholism. She had broken her shoulder right before the pandemic, had to have a really brutal surgery right as everything was shutting down. And like all of that pain and suffering finally led her to get clean and to like start going to church, you know? And so it's been really inspiring to see her kind of grow up and not having to feel like the child who has to parent his
Yeah.
mom, right? And so that's been really inspiring. And so how much of it? My dad is naturally like entrepreneurial. Like he was a bootlegger, he was a smuggler.
Cool.
Where he would get like cassettes in the Soviet Union. We get movies that we weren't supposed to watch because it's communism.
Yeah.
And so there's that natural thing in me, even though I didn't
He's
grow
like a
up with
hustler.
him. He's a hustler. He's a hustler. And so there's like that natural hustle in me that like, and we're a lot alike, but I didn't grow up in his home, right?
Yeah.
He moved on, got remarried. And so now it's interesting as like an adult to have time with him and like, man, we are so alike. It's so weird.
It's a DNA.
The DNA, or I guess those first 4 years, those formative years, when he was around. And so, yeah, I would say family is just, it's really cool to see it all come together. My kids just spent a couple days with my dad and my stepmom, and they loved it, So yeah, it's cool. Like the Lord has definitely done an incredible work. That like if you told me this 20 years ago, I'd be like, I don't think so. I don't think mom's gonna be sober. I don't think we're gonna be doing sleepovers at dad's. Like I don't think they're gonna be watching my kids. But like it's been really cool.
Yeah, it sounds like he's like reconstructing broken things.
Yeah. And he's honest. Like I had a pretty hard conversation with him as I became an adult of like, where were you? Like what happened? And he was just like, man, this and this happened and your mom made it hard. And she said to not come around. And every time I come around, I get into a fight with her boyfriends. And I was like, all right, well, I probably would have done that differently, but at least I understand. And you gave me an explanation.
Yeah.
And I think that brought a lot of healing. Just one hard, vulnerable conversation was really therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
God's good like that. He's good at, flushing out wounds, helping them heal. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about all of this. Thank you for your book. I think it's going to be really helpful to young people. I hope people check it out. Give it to your kids. Give it to your grandkids. I think there are a lot of young people who are just kind of aimlessly floating around, not knowing what to do. And I think there's a lot of parents, I hear it, a lot of parents that come to me like, my kid doesn't know what he wants to do. I don't know, and I don't know how to help him. A book like this can really get them on the right track and give them steps, not just like, here's my story, copy my story, because we're all different,
Yes.
but like, here's some practical things for how you can advance your life and do it in a godly way, in a way that advances the kingdom of God.
That's right.
And I love that.
Yeah, advances the kingdom with the hope to usher in goodness, beauty, and help other people. Because like when we look at all the scriptures, Matthew 25, caring for the least of these, we look at 1 Timothy 5 about caring for the widow in church, right? It always is the downstream effects of first having your life in order and having your house in order and being faithful with your time, talent, and treasure. And so I think oftentimes young people, rightfully so, have an ambition to change the world, but they first got to change their world. They first got to change their environment. And it's like there's a hierarchy of priorities. The sooner you can get to a place where you can provide for a family, then the more likely you can extend that beyond just your family to your extended family, towards your local church community, and then change the world.
Yeah, love it. It's perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. I know you love the show. And until next time, be safe out there and keep sharing the good news of Jesus Christ.